Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Left, Right, and Center show. We took a break last week to go ahead and spruce the place up. As you'll probably notice, we have a serious quality bump on Chris's end, and then we have a serious quality detriment on my end. So I'm using headphones because mine blew up. Or my lovely microphone blew up. So I'm using these things. They're very beautiful, and they should make do for tonight. So let's see. So what are we going to do? So we're going to do some news and memes as we usually do. Then we're going to talk about the stimulus bill and the omnibus package. Those two things are kind of separate or together or however you like it. And we'll talk about that. And then I think the big ticket item tonight is probably going to be, it's going to revolve around an article that Newt Gingrich wrote, sort of articulating what the feeling in the Trump camp is right now, or maybe just the conservative camp. And it has interesting points, and maybe we'll agree with it, and maybe we'll disagree with it. So, Tim, you're shaking your head, but you know you want to be a Republican. All right,
I want to be.
All right, who wants to start? Who's got something?
Wow! Wait, just now, like 15 minutes ago.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. That's hilarious. President Trump was granted pardons or clemency to 29 people, including Charlie Kushner, his son-in-law's dad, who was convicted as part of, and then two other people part of the Russia probe. But it doesn't say what he was pardoned for, but that's just like, I'm logging into the Washington Post right now. But wow, yeah, Trump's pardoning family members. It started.
Is that the breaking news, or is that breaking?
The Charlie Kushner part, I think, is breaking. He's already been pardoning the people from all the Russia investigations and all
Russia
that
stuff. He already did.
If I remember right, Charlie Kushner got in trouble for like business and tax issues with his real estate.
Maybe he can pardon Hunter.
You have to be convicted first, I believe. You can't just be like, I pardon you for all future things you may get convicted for.
Also, today pardoned Margaret Hunter, the former wife of Duncan Hunter, who, if you guys recall, both were guilty for taking campaign donations they raised in California and using them towards like personal expenditures like home improvement, travel, vacation. So glad to see that Trump is really expanding his philosophies of not giving zero shits about anything electoral or procedural in terms of ethics.
Yeah.
I'm glad our pardons are going towards people who misuse campaign contributions, tax fraud, all the good stuff.
I'd have to look more into it. You could be right.
That's what happens when you elect a scumbag into office.
I don't know what you mean. I have no idea what that means.
Yes, you do.
All right. Okay. All right. So that was our breaking news. It's coming live to you folks all over the country. You heard it here first. It's not the Washington Post, was it?
Yeah, it was the Washington Post.
According to the Washington Post, you heard it here first. All right, Tim, what do you have?
Just a funny.
Oh, I don't like it.
Can you read it?
Yeah, it's pretty bold.
Well, nice I know some stuff shows up backwards. I had to like mirror my camera.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's the correct orientation.
But just a little makeup and hair magic, we could keep Trump in office.
Oh God, I don't like it. It's everything wrong with both of them. It's just Biden's face, and then it's all the stuff that's wrong with Trump.
That's
just kidding.
I'd say that is the least amount of things. That is the least amount of things wrong with Trump, in my opinion.
Well,
Biden,
I suppose.
Biden, what did you say? He was a good-looking guy back in the day?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, look up pictures of Joe Biden back in the day. He was quite a catch, if I do say so myself. All right, let's see. What's that?
I didn't want Marco Rubio to show up yet. Marco Rubio hopped up on my screen. He wasn't meant to be there.
Throw him up there. Show me what you got. We talked about this yesterday, I think. The queue hopping.
Oh yeah, let's get our bro homeboy Rubio. I was just getting it ready, but I'm happy to Happy to share. Let me just fix him up a little bit. Wait. Oh my goodness, there we go. Look at him go. Look at him go. Beautiful quality. This is why we took a week off.
He's maybe caressing the side of your head a little bit.
Yeah, he is. He's really trying to. I really just want to continue to drag Marco Rubio's name in the dirt because I just think he is the ultimate example. He's the exemplary of hypocrisy in the Republican Party. Someone who's really just continually dragging Democrats for things that Trump has done continuously for years, such as swearing, like saying we can't be using this type of language. Meanwhile, like any Trump campaign, I watched a lot of his speeches. Trump will, without hesitation, just randomly, it doesn't even make sense. Like, it doesn't even make sense as he's speaking. He'll be like, son of a bitch, and go back to talking about something. And it's like, you can't just like, it's moral hypocrisy, right? You can't just tweet Bible quotes, which he does. He tweets Bible stuff every day, and then like have defended Trump for 4 years, and then start calling out, the Democrats for all the things that Trump just did. He's going to try to, but I really feel that he's getting beaten down pretty bad for it. He's the most loud-spoken example of someone who's tested the waters of hypocrisy.
So I'm going to agree that he's a hypocrite, but I'm just going to point to every single Democrat as well. Like, or politician in general.
We have one Republican that's a hypocrite, but all you all you Democrats are too, so it's fine. Like,
you missed it. I promise. Most of the Republicans.
Yeah, you said you guys talked about it yesterday. Yeah, you guys said you talked about it yesterday, right?
I think we talked about him. So I mean, you didn't even bring up what he did. He got the coronavirus vaccine after.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the issues with hypocrisy and why I think it's so powerful in today's world is, we are siloed in our media. So you don't know necessarily what the truth is about the other side. You only know what your side's telling you.
Yeah.
So you don't see the hypocrisy like you would if everybody was watching the same channel,
Yeah, so I actually have a perfect example of that. So my my first meme today, it's really an article, but it's I found it on Reddit as usual. So it's just, this exemplifies the divide between what we see and the information silo we have. So this was on the front page of Reddit. This alludes to an article that was written. It says, "Yes, exactly," says Progressive, after Pence warns that Democrats will make rich poorer and poor people more comfortable, right? And then it goes on to say you have to be all sorts of twisted to think that making poor people more comfortable is a bad thing. And I scrolled miles down through all these comments. I was looking for one person on this comment thread who actually watched the speech, and not a single one of them did. And I can tell because the exact line that follows this afterward is, "We want to make everybody richer," right? He said that immediately following this line, right? He's drawing a contrast between why are the Democrats trying to make people poorer when we're trying to make everybody richer, right? You can disagree with the fact that Republicans are going to get that done, but like nobody even checks. Like, this was front page Reddit, thousands and thousands of upvotes, and not a single one of those upvotes probably actually bothered to actually watch the speech, which I don't really blame them. Mike Pence is a decent orator, but like, he's kind of creepy. So, all right, so that's my example.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
All right, Sam, your turn. Oh, unless you guys wanted to say something, I'm sorry. I didn't.
No, you're good. I'm just acknowledging Pence is also creepy, but go ahead.
Which one next? We'll go with on topic stuff, sort of, for now. And then I got a couple that are just way off topic. But I thought this one was, I don't know, kind of funny, since we're on hypocrisy.
So they say that, right? So for anybody, if you can't read this meme, because I don't know, sometimes our YouTube format maybe streams out a little rough, but it says it's Obama saying, "All I'm saying is that Trump is literally doing everything Republicans said I was going to do at the end of my presidency, and all they can talk about is how Joe Biden isn't a real doctor." So I don't actually remember, were Republicans saying that Obama was not going to leave office or something like that?
Yeah.
I just don't remember. You could be right.
I think there was some colloquial garbage thrown around. No one thought it was going to be serious. I think there was I think when you saw Democrats chanting like one more term, one more, that's triggered some Republicans. But really, I mean, no Democrat chanting that actually. And Obama was also very polite about it in response to it. He's like, "Nah, my time is done. I won twice." Is like the kind of stuff he said. Like
he would be divorced if he tried to run again anyway.
Oh yeah, his wife would leave him.
Yeah.
So actually, I have his book over here. We can highlight it.
Yeah.
All right,
he
Chris,
probably could have got reelected. If it wasn't. Illegal. I just mean from a popularity standpoint, like if it wasn't
probably
taboo.
I mean, him versus Trump, probably.
Yeah, but would they have? I don't know if they'd have put Trump up. Somebody else.
Oh, right. So yeah, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
I mean, but him versus who? Jeb Bush, like,
I mean, that's the thing with Obama. I mean, he had some amazing qualities when it comes to being like an orator and just being able to convey kindness and stability and all those types of things. Like he's a likable guy, So
yep.
Anyway,
all right, Chris,
that's one.
Cool. So my next one is very much relevant today. It's a news story out of Politico that came out earlier today. And as you know, Politico is pretty middle ground. Politico doesn't really.
I was just kidding.
I know. I see Nate's head. I guess the Politico tends to lead them a little bit more Democrat, but
Fox News is middle ground. Okay. These days,
like nobody. No, that's a straw man right there.
So I'm just gonna share out the article. I'm not gonna post it on my screen, but basically, the fun thing about I do want to preface this. I guess it's like a fun tidbit without getting lectury. Is for the most part, staffers on the Hill, Republican and Democrat. Every day you're kind of required to read the news as part of your job, and Politico is really the go-to one. So Politico is by far and large the most one of the leading documents or publications that matters to staffers in Washington, D.C., because for the most part, they're actually pretty accurate for on-the-ground stuff. But anyways, one of the things they did that's more in the kind of our world of news that the average quote-unquote person would get is they analyzed Trump's continued leaning into QAnon or Qanon or however we say it, QAnon.
You just say QAnon.
QAnon. Nice. So basically, he's in the past couple of days, he's retweeted 11 QAnon people, which I'm sure the Republicans will be like, whatever. But more concerningly, he's had several meetings with Sidney Powell, an attorney with QAnon community. He's also been meeting multiple times with Representative-elect Marjorie Greene, who is the first QAnon Republican that has been elected into the House of Representatives. Like full-blown conspiracy theory. There's no denying that. She's just full-blown conspiracy theorist that got into Congress. And then also, of course, this is not a surprise, but Michael Flynn, who has since become someone that's quite involved in the QAnon community. So I find this concerning, and Nate and I talked about this yesterday, actually. I truly believe, maybe you guys have heard that here, you heard it first to the country. I really believe that Trump is going to try to fight for a new political party. I really can see QAnon becoming the next value of Trumpist politics. I really can see it. Even if it's not a direct split from the Republican Party, you're going to see more QAnon members, or maybe you'll see more congressional members dive onto QAnon. Obviously, it's going to break away from the conspiracy roots. Like you're not going to have people thinking that Democrats are poisoning children with Kool-Aid or whatever the dumbass stuff you guys believe in. Not you guys, but they believe in. But I can see Trump leveraging this and building it into a legitimate movement.
What do you think about that, Tim? Because like I said, so we were talking about this yesterday. I think that there's room for both parties to split. I would say maybe not necessarily down the middle, but maybe the Republican Party right down the middle, but the left maybe a little bit more towards the fringe. So the progressives could make their own party, and then the populists could make their own party. Think about that.
More so than having four parties, I think we'd end up with three. I think what might happen is, as we were looking at those graphs on our last podcast that I had put up about how the parties are splitting, we may end up with a huge portion of people that are far left and a huge portion that are far right, and then the people that were more moderate in the center kind of fall out and form their own group. So it might be that the Republicans become this extreme right compared to today's average, right? And the liberals or the left and the Democrats may become the extreme left, and then you have a fallout in the middle, maybe.
No, I don't think so. Because like as a person in the party, I feel so I'm, like whatever I am, I'm sort of like I'm like center right, maybe a little bit down towards the libertarian side of things, and I feel the populists leaving. Right, it's like I didn't even notice this 3 or 4 weeks ago. This wasn't even in my mind of this happening. But I just suddenly everybody who is very populist, I'm suddenly realizing that there's not very much that we share in common. It literally was just Trump doing Trump things. That was like the conservatives liked the conservative things he was doing, and then the populists liked the populist things he was doing. And now that he's a non-entity anymore, I just feel the populists just like receding. They're going away. They're like I share almost nothing in common with them. And I like Tim Pool is a very good example of this. I'm watching his show, and where I used to overlap like 80% of what the stuff he was saying, I'm like I almost stop watching him because his
Tim
stuff
Pool,
is very populist. It's not. There's no conservative principle involved because he's not a conservative. He never was.
Yeah, but that was happening before Trump lost. That was happening, like we've talked about it, where we said, like you're like, yeah, I used to watch Tim Pool a lot. Now it's a lot less. I've said before that like I kind of liked Shapiro before, and now I really don't. Well, it's because they've him
for a different reason, though.
Yeah, well, it's because, in my opinion, it's because they've continued to go farther in that direction, and my views have not, gone that way.
Could be for you. For me, it was
and so. It could be that but the only difference between saying the Republican Party splits and they become the populist group, which is what you're saying, and what I'm saying is who keeps the Republican name? It's like, which one's the bitch in the divorce, like...
No, it's establishment versus the up and coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I do agree that more recently than not, those who had more individuals who had more populist roots have become much more okay with sprouting at this point. Like, you see blooming now, where it's like, yeah, I was even surprised to see Ben Shapiro hop on the Dr. Joe Biden bandwagon, but that's just like a surface level.
Did you see his tweet on that though? It made no sense at all.
Yeah, Chris and I talked about this too. We did a lot of talking, apparently.
We did.
Hey, that's what me and Nate do. Don't you steal my time?
Yeah, that's our time. Who's that?
I had another news story, just very, very brief.
All right, what you got?
It's about dyeing your mustache.
Yeah, no, this is actually the next mustache trend we're gonna see take over the country. No. This is the new Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona. He is,
right?
Yeah, he's from Nathan. He did his undergraduate. We did our undergraduate at Central Connecticut State. Went on to UConn. Did his master's and PhD doctoral work there. Youngest principal in the state. Taught for 5 years. Some interesting stuff though. I actually don't have an opinion on him. I have a friend who actually was in his 5th grade class, which is really cool. So, and she's somebody that I have immense respect for. And so I'm leaning in favor of this person because of her respect towards him. And
from 5th grade?
I trust her judgment. But I do just want to say there is some interesting, I've also seen some other flack online. None that I actually maybe agree with. But for instance, a lot of people that are classroom teachers like to berate the individuals who go from there's individuals who enter the teaching profession who teach in the classroom for like 2-3 years, hop into an administrative role, and ride the wave up. And so he is one of those people, but he also did 5 years of classroom teaching, which is a significant amount of time in the classroom. That's like 25% of your way to tenure, which is no joke. Most people leave teaching by the 5th, 6th year. So the fact that he stayed went in as a principal, built himself up as an administrator, for a decent amount of time, I respect him. And I like that we're going to have a classroom teacher in. There are some policies that I think people will disagree with, though, that are liberal. For example, he's against the school shutdowns. He believes that people need to be in person, which is definitely more of conservative tone right now. And I also know that from what I'm going to gather, so Biden actually just tweeted this like an hour ago. He said it's long past time we pay teachers what they deserve. And so I actually really believe that this individual there's a high reason to either one, we're going to see teacher pay increase, but it may increase in more conservative ways. Typically, I think they're not conservative or liberal, but it's not to make a whole point out of this, but conservatives tend to lean towards merit pay. I actually lean towards merit pay. Yeah. We may see some policies incentivizing that in the country. So my judgment on this individual is up in the air still, although I'm leaning towards like in favor of him. But I like to be conscious that I'm not just going to, hug every Democrat. I like to hold my party accountable. But for what it's worth, I know people that I trust that like him.
So Ben Shapiro mentioned him earlier today on the show. I was honestly zoned out at the time, so I just remember he mentioned Connecticut like 3 or 4 times in conjunction with that guy, and then he mentioned one of the things you said. I forget exactly what. But
school shutdowns.
School shutdowns. That was the thing. So obviously he was in favor of that, and then other than that, I think it might have been in the context of Joe Biden. Not necessarily kowtowing to the far left. You know what's kind of funny? I'm just going to put this out there real quick. Conservative commentators cannot make up their mind whether Joe Biden is pissing off the far left or whether Joe Biden will not be able to stop the far left, right? Because they keep saying Joe Biden is going to be an avatar for the far left. And then they keep talking about all these picks that are just absolutely like that are pissing off the far left.
Yeah, this guy is a moderate by far and large. I mean, the only mega win if you are someone on the people on the far left do not like this person as of right now. But that's getting my far left circles are also in New England, and so that's getting kind of mirrored by the fact that he's a Connecticut native, and that's super cool. He's from Central. That's cool. Like, lift up he's a moderate by far and large. He's a moderate. You can anticipate moderate education reforms that are progressive nonetheless. In terms of progressive, when we compare those to how Republicans have been treating, or how Betsy DeVos, who is barely a Republican, has treated education. So we will see things like loan forgiveness. We will not see things such as, union reaffirmment. We will see things such as potentially merit pay.
So on the topic of education, we had a question in chat. They asked, and I guess this might go more towards Chris, as okay, here's a question, because I just learned about it and I feel like it's not common knowledge. Do y'all know you can go to community college for free under PAC in Connecticut if you haven't taken classes?
Yeah.
And obviously I don't know anything about it, but I'm not from Connecticut, so.
Yeah, you can. For the most part, to be honest, without going on a mega tangent about this, because please cap me if I do, because this is my profession. I work in higher education here in Connecticut, in social services, but nonetheless in higher education. And community college for the most part can be free in many ways. There's a Connecticut program for free tuition. There's typically, if you are in a financial need, you're receiving a Pell Grant. Not always, but most of the time, and therefore your Pell Grant typically covers almost all or more of community college tuition, especially if you go part-time. There's other options too. If you're a young person right out of high school, you're struggling, you want to go through college more inexpensive, go work for Chipotle, do tuition reimbursement through them, go work for Starbucks, do Arizona State online. There's a lot of options to do free college right now if you're being really persistent, and you're able to work for Chipotle or Starbucks. Both offer great tuition reimbursement for, those quote-unquote entry-level jobs or low-skilled labor.
Join the Navy.
Join the military. You can be an orphan.
Yeah, baby.
You can, if you're an orphan, you get free college. That's what I did. I didn't make myself an orphan. That would be pretty evil, but
life hack. It's illegal. You didn't hear it.
Just get rid of your parents, and then boom, free college.
So I've got one. Wait. Oh yeah, you haven't gone in a while. You go.
How dare you?
This one's
all right.
quick.
So I have one from the illustrious Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's actually
you love AOC.
So this is.
I love that tweet.
Right. Okay. So I do want to talk about this tweet. So I'm going to read out. This is from the illustrious Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says, "I just want everyone in this country to have the same health care I receive as a member of Congress." And this got me thinking, and I've been thinking about this theme for a long time, and we try not to turn this into a mega conversation as we do for everything that we talk about. But What do you guys think about the idea that in America we think that we have this notion that everything that everybody does has equal value to things that other people do, and it sort of derives from the fact that we believe that all humans are created equal, but we sort of like tides over into what everybody does is of equal worth, right?
I don't think many people have that feeling. I
do. The left does. I personally believe that a dishwasher is as valuable as a member of Congress.
Right, and so
it's valuable in what way? I think it's an important distinction as a human being. Yes, to
right, but I think that's where the bleed over is right there. So the question that you're asking is I think where the conflation comes in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So Chris, and people on the left, you think okay, so a dishwasher is just as valuable as a congressperson.
Totally.
Right. So that is true. That is correct. But the issue is that the role of dishwashing is not as important to the United States as a representative is. Right. And so then you get into some tough questions. Like, I'm not really making a statement here. I'm just trying to open up a conversation. So you get into some tough questions, right? So if in a vacuum you had to choose between vaccinating your representative and vaccinating your dishwasher, who would you choose? Right? And then can you from that extrapolate a statement saying one person is more valuable than the other? Right? And this is kind of like an ethical question. I've been thinking about this for a while. It's like, as Americans, because we so strongly believe that all people are created equal, it's bleeding over into a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm very sympathetic to it, but like it causes some really weird brain farts where it's like, well, obviously the president, the vice president, Congress should get vaccinated first because they need to be in tip-top shape in order to get stuff done for the country.
Totally. I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
I do. I also, just to expand on this, I think, and then Tim, I'll pass the baton, the talking piece to you.
By the way, your mic sounds great, Chris.
Oh, sweet. I'm so glad to hear. Awesome. But, really, AOC has tweeted this multiple times. This is not just like a new notion of hers. And really, I think it comes down to that. It's strange to me that, yes, sure, we'll say that members of Congress on certain things like vaccinations, of course, we want the president to get his COVID vaccine prior to myself, right? That makes sense to me in the same way that we want frontline workers to have that besides.
I actually disagree with that.
Anyways,
we'll get into that.
Another point. But anyways, when we're discussing like healthcare, because the left, and I'm not saying this to kind of combat where you guys stand, but this is simply just speaking so you guys can understand where the left is. We truly believe that healthcare, and this again, Pandora's box. So let's stay on just a tweet, but I'm just going to justify.
We've already tried to hash this out a little bit too.
Yeah, nothing new, but we believe that healthcare is a universal right, all that good stuff, etc. XYZ. We believe that everyone should have access to healthcare, and it's just very strange to us that when we see that, it's a hypocrisy point because yes, AOC, who believes everyone should get healthcare, cool, she's getting free healthcare, quote unquote, as a benefit. But it's interesting because it's not like there's co-pays for members of Congress. It's not like they have their own individual pay from their salary. It's just fully covered from as a benefit. And so it's just so funny to us when we see like Mitch McConnell, who benefits from zero copay full health coverage on a pay of $150,000 a year, which is, not like it's high, right? The dude's not a millionaire. He shouldn't be a millionaire just on that pay unless he saves it and invests it. But you see what I'm saying? It's a hypocrisy point. It's like maybe the answer is then, maybe the answer to this is not let's give everyone healthcare. Maybe Congress should have copays. Maybe they should have a portion of their paycheck go into their health insurance. If we want to play by true principles, Mitch McConnell should have a deductible.
Well, there is insurance out there still that isn't that doesn't have copays. Prior to switching careers, the union guys at the plant I worked at, they didn't have any copays at all, and all of the salary people did. The union had a different healthcare plan than the salary and the office workers. And that's what it was, right? And it was a benefit. So I don't think it's an issue that one group has a better benefit than another or whatever per se, even if it's Congress or, or a union or salary or whatever. But to kind of go to the crux of this, in my opinion, to what Nathan at least brought up was, all men are created equal, right? Or all people is the meaning, not just men, right? So all people are created equal, all mankind. So to me, that just means on a basic level, like you see somebody walking down the street, you respect them as a human being as much as you respect any other human being, not because of anything other than they're human. Sex doesn't matter, age doesn't matter, race doesn't matter, none of that shit matters, right? They're a human being, and that's to me what that means. But I'm nowhere near as valuable to the economy as Elon Musk, or I'm nowhere near as important to the economy as Trump right now as being a president or whatever, right? Like, so to say that everybody has an equal value to the country or to the GDP or to anything like that is, to me, just ignorant. That isn't the case, and people aren't created with equal skill levels or equal ability.
Right, and that's part of a much larger conversation.
Yeah, and I'm not, I want everyone to have the same opportunity at the same time. If somebody worked a lot harder to develop a skill, or were lucky enough to be born with some innate ability, right? That happens too. Then you would expect that they will strive and go further in some particular avenue than somebody that wasn't as good at it. They shouldn't all be the same.
I generally agree. I'll let you finish that up there, Chris.
Just real quick, this definitely gets into philosophy conversation, but not trying to challenge your notions or debate, but more just kind of lay out for the audience to know how the left feels. Is we for the most part, at least the very far left, maybe moderates on the left will disagree with this, but those on the far left, this is one of my far left beliefs is actually, we do think that everybody has equal value, including in their work, that we would say that, due to necessity, due to intrinsic value, that when I was a dishwasher, that work would have been considered just as valuable as somebody who was, building a car or designing electric cars or building a spaceship, right? We believe that human capital at all levels of society is fundamental. Even those who are unable, right? We believe that, okay, they're unable, but they still bring merit to this world. And that it's a weird conflation, Nate. Like you said, it's a weird conflation between everyone's equal in terms of human nature, and then all work is considered equal value, which I know you guys would disagree on that. Like, yes, Elon Musk's contribute to the economy is more valuable than myself that running a nonprofit. And I think,
but then, it's like, well, then do you kill yourself if it comes down to between you and Elon Musk dying? It's like, well, no, I still am a valuable human being, and we are on the same exact.
Also, I don't like Elon Musk. I just want to say this. I think
you're like, I would just kill him regardless.
I really think Elon Musk is a total sham, but that's a whole other point. But just wanted to say that there is a conflation there. I acknowledge the conflation, and I kind of stand by it. In that, work is we would say on the far left is all work is valuable. That's also where we also rein in real quick on like where we're not communist socialists, but we are democratic socialists. Is that we're not saying that all pay should be equal necessarily. And I get the whole in the argument. You're like, well, if all pay is not equal, then like doesn't that right there say that you're? I get it. But what we're saying is that
if we boil it down, like let's look at hunter-gatherer type work or something. I don't know, just something basic. Like, let's say you had a tribe of 100 people, and only 2 out of those 100 were able to, successfully hunt animals, right? Everybody else has tried; they just don't have the skill; they can't do it. But 2 out of the people can do it. Is that work? Is them the what they're able to provide not more valuable because nobody else can do it? Whereas
would you not allocate more resources to them in order to compensate them for their valuable skills?
Right. Well, it would just work out that way, right? But compared to like maybe washing dishes, I shouldn't say washing dishes because we already talked about that. I was washing clothes. I don't know, but doing some basic non-hard, not real skill labor that everybody in the tribe could do. Which one's more valuable? Which person hurts more if you lose, right? If you lose one of the 2 people that can do hunting, that's way more impactful. So to me, that work is more valuable.
And that's where we would come in and say, you're right. And that's where like democratic socialism comes in, where it's like, we should, individuals that are innovating, providing new skills. Like we can understand why they would be compensated more. And there's an incentive to work and acquire new skills, right? But we're saying that regardless of the journey that you're on in developing new skills, that at that moment, because you're also on that journey of, that incentivized journey of development, your work is still valuable. Now, granted, pay gets differentiated, right? But this kind of, again, it comes into conflation. Because we also believe universal healthcare is like a fundamental right, which I know you guys, it's a little bit more controversial, disagreeable. But because we believe in that, we also agree that aside from pay, this one particular benefit is something that we want everybody to have.
Well, and I think that's a different conversation wholly, which you kind of hinted towards.
Well, I think it's the same thing. So,
I don't. I think what he's saying is their belief is that healthcare falls under what is generally considered, human right. Like when we talked, we both agreed, all three of us agreed, when you see another person walking down the sidewalk, you treat them with the same respect as anybody else, right? Doesn't matter if they're a dishwasher or a CEO, they're still a person.
It doesn't always shake out that way, but we respect people who do that, and we try to. If you're a good person, you generally try to emulate that.
We agree that that's a good way to be, right?
Yeah, we try.
Very American way to be.
What I think Chris is kind of getting to is he believes that similarly to treating everybody equally, regardless if they're a CEO or dishwasher, healthcare should be something provided equally to everybody. And I think that's a conversation that is different than saying that all work is equal, right? And I'm not saying that a dishwasher isn't valuable, or I'm just saying that I washed dishes when I got out of college before I got a job for a while. Everyone's path is different. I respect everybody's. Yeah, exactly. I respect everybody's path and whatever they get to do, but I definitely don't think that everybody's output is equal. But anyway, that's a good
right. So hey. Yeah, right. So it's an interesting conversation. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that. It's one of these. It's a contradiction that everybody works with at some level or another, right? And I think it's more like a sliding scale. Like if you fully embrace that contradiction, you just end up further on the left. But like even Republicans, being Americans, we still dabble with that. I think everybody in this country does, and probably throughout the West.
Yeah.
All right, whose turn is it? We still got some time.
It's mine. I got one. This will be a quick one because it's just a rehash of something we already have talked about. But another study came out. So 50 years of tax cuts for the rich failed.
Who wrote this?
Trickle down economic study says.
Actually, the London School of Economic Studies, which is by far and large like the most like highly held school thought body of economy, published this.
Right. I just like so
it wasn't an American? Screw it.
Did it come out of America?
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's those liberals over there. Hey, I mean, everybody's a liberal that I disagree with. But let me just. This is like usually my broad point when it comes to this is like people keep saying trickle down doesn't work, and I'm looking around the country right now. Like, I'm surrounded by a veritable cornucopia of technology and wealth. Like this country continues to grow in wealth every year, and it's
regardless of the trickle down, right? Like this is a conversation I've had with you.
Or doesn't it?
Doesn't. I'm saying it didn't play. It's not the reason that we have these things.
Okay,
we may have nicer things and more things had we done it a different way, right? Like just to say, hey, I'm still here, so the way we did it is the right way. It's a very conservative view, huh? It worked, so don't look at changing it.
I think the
big thing I've had this conversation with you and some of my family members and other people that strongly believe in this is every time I show statistics or studies or data, the argument I get back is, yeah, but I just don't believe it. Like there's no counter data. I never see any counter argument.
My counter
other than anecdotal view of saying, yeah, well, I feel like it should work, so it must.
No, not that it should work. I'm saying that the country's rich, right? So it's probably not hurting. We are the richest country in the world.
I mean, Trump is rich. We'll agree with that. But does that mean he's a good businessman? No. He inherited it all, right? So just because of one thing doesn't necessarily mean the other is related to it.
We also have some of the most significant, not the most, but one of the most significant income inequalities of development.
Yeah, that's the other thing I think that came out in this study is the study shows that trickle-down economics has actually caused an increase in income inequality.
And I guess the fun thing that Republicans would then say to this, or what we kind of have just become like All right, here it comes. Like, well, the quality of living for the lower classes have improved so much. Look, the poverty people have air conditioners now. That's what we're used to hearing. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I've heard that particular statement before somewhere.
You're steel manning me. I love it.
That's the buzzword. The poverty has air conditioners now. Look at them go. I bet. I don't know if you guys ever saw Dracula.
I like
on
to say
Netflix.
iPhones too. That's the reason.
I don't know if you guys have seen Dracula on Netflix, but there's like one scene where like Dracula basically is frozen or whatever for like thousands of years and arrives in the 21st century, walks into some like clearly like it's like a white trash home. That's what it's supposed to be. And he's like, wow, the wealthiest kings of history didn't live in this type of environment. And I'm like, wow, some libertarian got hard watching.
Yeah.
I think that was the Dracula series that
It was.
only had one season, right? Like it got canceled, I think.
I think it was only meant to be a one-off special season. I loved it. It did right by the book.
I liked it pretty. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I didn't
as
see
much
it.
as it could, it did right by the book, and I personally love the book.
I didn't know it was supposed to only be a single season. I was kind of disappointed when I heard there wasn't another season.
Yeah, they basically what they did was they not to go on a tangent with this, but they captured in essence major points of the book. They changed it a little bit, but they got major events that occur in the book and character development of Dracula, and they transplanted that into the beginning, middle, end with that time travel portion of it, which was a unique kind of twist. But it does actually, for the most part, capture how the book goes, with the exception of how he dies in the show. Like he dies completely out of the book. He's just at that point a pure evil character, and
Spoiler
Yeah.
alert.
it's worth reading if you ever want to take the time. It is a little bit of a dated book, but it's a fun read. I mean, it's even more fun if you audiobook it. Go look up like a good audiobook of Dracula, and it's actually really fun. It's very adventurous.
But like the original, Bram Stoker.
Yeah, Bram Stoker's.
Oh, I thought
Right.
we were talking. I'm assuming the him walking into the 21st century house was not in the original Bram Stoker.
Nope, it wasn't. It was not. But it's Bram Stoker's is good, dude. It was definitely ahead of its time, without a doubt. Reading it, you'll feel like, wow, this is. I think Dracula gets so pop culturized that you miss out on, or it gets like misconception of how the book actually functions in the same way that Frankenstein gets it. But actually reading Dracula, it's really cool. Like you're like, wow, there's a lot of development here. There's like a lot of plot twists, and up until like the end of the book, you're like, what on earth is going to happen? Like you do not know if you've never read the book. And if you only know pop culture references of Dracula, you have no idea how the book's ending, even up to like the last pages. You're like, what is happening right now?
Interesting. All right, go out and check it out. We're not getting sponsored by them. Just do it because the guy's been dead for a long time. So who's going to sponsor us? All right, whose turn is it?
Chris,
Chris?
I'm good. You guys have more memes?
Okay, I have one more, and then we can get into the second main event.
I've got two.
Well,
but they're quick though.
I don't care.
I set my green
Alright,
screen up that if I go like this, it looks like my arms are cut off. It's kind
I
of
know.
cool. A little
I'll have
nub.
to adjust your borders or something, I guess.
I like it. So,
Tim, do you have invisible borders? Nope.
well,
Good.
yeah, I'm like, if I go like this, it's like, look, my arm is just being like cut off.
we do if we go to our other thing. Oh, wrong way.
All right.
All right. Okay. So while I have this up, so this particular idea that I wanted to talk about, this has to do with sort of like when we were talking about, is the American dream dead? And this is sort of a point that I would have with it. And this is more of a nuanced point because I'm so incredibly intelligent and I have nothing but nuanced points. But so here's this article. I saw this the other week and I thought about our conversations about the American dream. And the title of this article is How Hope Can Make You Happier with Your Lot. And basically, I'm not going to read this article. I'm not going to go through this, but this is a new study came out that sort of reaffirmed the idea that if you have hope in your situation, right, if you believe that there's a way out, you will fare much better psychologically speaking. You'll do better in life. I recommend it. It's a quick read. Here's the title again. This is at uea.ac.uk or whatever. Apparently, yeah. Go to that. Maybe I'll leave a link in the chat. But so my point with this, I just kind of want to tie this into the American dream conversation. And so part of my issue, the part of it, right? So I just kind of disagree in general, but part of my issue with, let's say the left or the Democrats telling anybody that they are downtrodden, it's not, and I'm not arguing whether or not those particular people are, right? So, for example, if you tell young people the American dream is dead, or if you tell black people that their situation is hopeless unless the liberals save them, or, you know, like whatever it is, like whoever you're telling is in a hopeless situation, it harms them more than if it even is true and you lie to them and tell them they're in a good spot, right? I'm not necessarily advocating lying, but let's say I'm advocating for optimism, right?
How do you know it's more? How do you know it harms them more?
Because so extrapolating from this article, so this says that if you have hope in your situation, right? If you believe
it's better to have hope, which we all agree with, but to say that it's more better to have hope than to have an accurate representation of your situation is questionable. I'm being very specific with my words here. I'm trying to split this off from whether or not it's an accurate assessment.
You don't think that?
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you don't think you can have both? You can't have the truth and hope. You can't say that, yes, because of historical policies in this country that have perpetuated today that, we do see foster youth only graduating with 3%. We do see African Americans having a high rate of incarceration because they're more likely to be in impoverished communities. You don't think that we can be conscious of those facts, but then also say, but there is hope. There's hope that we could change policy from the from the grassroots. There is hope that people can change their community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously, and I think that that's the way forward with it. So I guess my problem, and I suppose I'm mostly talking about the far left, and that's most of my criticisms obviously are of mostly the far left, but I think the far left dwells on it far too much.
Sure.
It is the point. It is the talking point. It's that the people, the white people are out to get you, or the Republicans are out to get you, or the rich people are trying to oppress you. And I think there's too much of that message and not enough of the hope.
I mean, not long ago, but when President Trump was first elected, I realized that if all I did was fixate on the weight of every single issue, I would have personally been crushed. I realized, like, on your end of the political aisle, like, it was relatively celebratory, but from my side, I was like, wow, we have a really terrible person entering office. And so for me, I just focused in on like 1 to 2 things that I really cared about, and I was able to operate in hope. I really care about child welfare reform. So that's something I have personally fought for in the past couple of years. I'm like, I can control what's in my world. I can be a teacher. I can go join AmeriCorps. I can serve my country in a way that I believe is equitable, like, which is one we actually have a conversation. I was thinking about doing military. So I'm not knocking on military, but I was looking at a way that I can serve. And to me, AmeriCorps made the most sense because it was, in my community that I grew up in, and that's what I figured would make the most sense to do.
It's probably where you're most uniquely suited for, anyways.
It was. I think that's where my heart was meant to be, and I fought immigration reform, and I actually was, for what it's worth, when I look back, I was very successful in the child welfare reform. I was a little successful in immigration. I got some stuff done, and I was able to operate on hope while kind of not unacknowledging all the craziness that was occurring in the country, but not letting it consume me. And I do agree with you, to close my point, that there are a lot of individuals on the far left that harp at this notion that the world is doom and gloom, which actually I agree it kind of is, but we can't operate every single day on doom and gloom because otherwise we're going to crush ourselves. Whereas, pick one or two.
Advice for anybody. Forget politics,
It's not. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, in this particular article, they use the word hope, and I don't know if that's the word that I think is the most powerful. I think it's belief.
Yeah.
To me, it's not. To me, hope is like has an air of like less than real, right? It's like maybe someday this could happen. If ever, it's not. I don't know. It just kind of has a little bit more of a lofty, less than real type of sound to it. Whereas belief in positivity is a lot more tangible. And if I believe that I can surpass these things or get past whatever, then to me that's the powerful thing, right? It's just being optimistic and working and trying.
Yeah. So all right. So that's it for me. That's all I wanted to bring up with that.
So here, I have one that's just meant to be obviously extreme and funny and whatever, which is this one. The image they don't want you to see It's a 1G cell tower during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918.
A crappy pine tree.
I don't know what it is. It's probably some sort of a radio tower, a light tower. Who knows? Right? Like, it's just. I just thought that was funny. But the one that I kind of wanted to show that's way off topic, but I thought,
oh yeah,
this just amazed me that this is a real freaking person climbing like this. All right, like this is insane. I'll just skip ahead a couple seconds because it's not, their prep thing is. But watch, this is the cable is not lifting her.
Wow. Oh God. She's just going.
Like, what the hell?
Wow.
Wait, the other chick
She is Daredevil.
The other chick was like right behind her, despite getting a bad start too. That's crazy.
That's Matt Murdock, guys. That's not.
That is.
Yeah. That's insane. I mean, if anybody's ever gone rock climbing, I mean, that's crazy.
I just saw that. I knew it was way off topic, but I was so amazed at and I mean, I have seen. I'm sure the guys is just amazing as the girls there, but like I just happened to be the one I saw in the meme. But how do they pull him? Like, oh, I'm way overweight, dude. Way overweight. I couldn't even get up like 2 of those.
Speaking of overweight, let's talk about that stimulus bill. So yeah, so how's that for a segue, huh? I'm getting pretty good at this stuff. So
my boy Trump trying to give me some more money.
Apparently.
He's fighting as he should.
I don't think he should at all. Anyways, okay, all right. No, I suppose we could start there. All right, so let's start with the 600, right? So for if people aren't aware, and I don't know how you're not aware of this, I think most people are generally aware of this. There was 2 bills passed, right? There was one of them that was the general spending bill, and then one of them was a COVID-19 relief package. A lot of people are conflating the 2 things since they were passed at the same time. But if the long and short of it is that there is some decent stuff in there, depending on how you look at it. I believe there's extensions for the Paycheck Protection Program. There's extension for unemployment insurance. There's good stuff in there that most people agree with. And then there's some weird stuff, and then there's some bad stuff. So we can talk about the weird. So the weird, I would put the $600 the $600 peasant check under. And I suppose let me start out on that one. So from the conservative side, so I can do conservative and populist first. So the populists were like, what the heck? $600, what the hell am I going to do with this? And then Trump came back with, nope, I don't like it. Send it back. I want, what did he say, 2,000?
2,000. Which is how much AOC actually proposed.
Right. Which I'll let you get to what the left agreeing with that. So the populists were like, heck yeah, Trump, Daddy Trump, get us some money. And then the conservatives, especially the people who revere Rand Paul, were like, we probably shouldn't be getting any checks at all, right? We should just be focusing on keeping the businesses afloat and getting unemployment insurance and the Paycheck Protection Program to keep people working. Like, we don't need to be sending out checks to people who we don't know if they're even affected by the pandemic. It's like, just real quick, I don't need a check. I do not need a check. I mean,
hey,
sure,
when you get yours,
my credit cards,
when you get yours, just sign the back and mail it to me.
You can donate it to Sun Scholars Incorporated.
Right.
Actually, to that point, we actually, on the first stimulus check, a lot of people did receive checks that didn't need it, and we a lot of people really became philanthropic with it. We had a couple donations from based on stimulus checks. So I think a lot of good-hearted people will do that type of work. But yeah, no, I definitely also know people in my world that blew their checks on really frivolous things that I guess you can argue stimulates the local economy and that money still exists and whatnot. And it helped out people who may have been struggling. But yeah, I can see the merit in that.
Yeah, I mean, despite what you believe, Nate, trickle-down economics doesn't work, but trickle-up economics does, and that's what these checks are.
One-time payments?
It's not necessarily it's putting a bunch of money into the economy. Yeah, it's not necessarily, oh, you need this money to pay your rent or else, right? It's, hey, even if you don't need it and you get an extra $600, what do most people do with it? They go and use it somewhere. It goes into the economy. It goes to businesses. Where we have to be a little careful, real quick, is it doesn't go to all the businesses that need the most help necessarily, right? Like, let's say airlines right now, because not a lot of people are traveling, they need help. By giving you a check for $600, $2,000, doesn't matter how much. It doesn't mean you're like, oh shit, now I'm going to go fly, right? You're still not going to give the money to the airlines, but you're going to put the money out in the economy somewhere, and that's the idea behind it more so. I mean, it's also to help the people that need it, right? It's like, hey, if you can't pay your rent, great, here's some money, pay your rent. But the people that don't, they're not just getting, most people, some do, but most people don't just get the money and stash it under their pillow, right?
Okay, so, but let me ask both of you, and I'll let you should respond first, Chris, since you haven't gone yet.
Sure.
Why?
He did go. What are you talking? He was right before me.
Was he?
You don't even listen to him. You don't even listen.
Yeah. Well, I even lost my train of thought anyways.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean...
Yeah, go ahead.
I do agree with Tim on that notion that it's... When we're talking about stimulus checks, it's not so much that, yes, it's going to all people in need, which I would say, like, also, how do you even decide at that point? So it's just easier to do a blanket. Like, all right, everybody gets it that's in this limit.
How about if you're unemployed?
Yeah, well, then you also get the check and then also insurance or not insurance, but you have...
How about we just do unemployment insurance?
Screw
beyond that,
screw the people that had a good job and were able to go and find a job at, washing dishes and trying to work while they can instead of, screw them. They don't get a check.
If stimulus check comes out right now, I'll tell you what, as someone who also I'm financially in a good place now. I'm finally employed with my organization because we have funding. I would either A, put it towards my student loans. I would B, put it towards my organization, or C, probably put it towards like my wedding fund or house fund. Like we know we're saving up to buy a home. So no matter what, that stimulates the economy. That helps the Connecticut housing industry. It helps the wedding, the event venues are going to need that money. It helps, I don't know, some asshat who owns the private student loans I'd be donating into. That was my own personal choice. I get it. I have student debt, and I understand I chose to have it. So, but that's what I would use it for. So it would benefit. The reality is, anyone making $75,000 or less. Also, take this into mind. One last point. For the most part, if you're at 45 to 75 grand, because of taxes, your take-home pay is pretty much the same. Everyone's making about $3,000 to $4,000 a month, even though there's a $30,000 difference of pay. So no matter what, everybody in that world, yes, they're middle class. Yes, they can afford nice things. I can go buy dinner right now and my world's not going to end. But at the same time, $1,000 extra into our world, it actually goes a long way, even if everything's good.
Okay. So I have two questions then for you, and I can feel this ideological debate spinning way up, and we can't really get into it because we got to go do the other thing. But these are my most poignant points. So if you guys are so pro this, then why are we not doing this every month? Why don't we have universal basic income?
Hey.
Okay, so we got one person for UBI. That's okay.
I'm here for it.
We've talked about it. I like Yang, right? We've already talked about that.
Okay, so all right, so then there's no contradiction there. But number two, so we'll let you guys get off on that one. Okay, I can't hang you up on that. Number two, which is better, giving people a one-time check to stimulate the economy, or to make sure that their businesses don't go under, so that their businesses can continue to pay them to be productive members of society?
I agree. I do believe that businesses should be receiving a bit more money right now than individuals. However, stimulus checks, I think, can go a long way.
I think the stimulus checks, short of what I just said, do both, right? They stimulate the economy, but they stimulate... let me expand on this. Okay. So they stimulate the economy, and those checks go out, and they get spent, right? They go into the businesses you're talking about. So the businesses that are open, that people are spending money at, they receive the stimulus checks as a benefit. The part where I said before, the companies that are struggling because of the pandemic that is being hit specifically, so restaurants are an example, airlines, hotels, travel agencies, those types of things, they need additional help, in my opinion, more so than what you can do just by stimulating the economy from a general cash infusion, right? They need specific help. And so and some of that's included as well. I mean, I know this bill does provide a lot of help for the airlines as an example. I don't know that it covers all of the ones in need, but to your point, though, I feel like it's interesting that you want the government to pick which businesses or how the money goes directly to the businesses rather than the people with money being such a proponent for free market. Isn't having the people having money and deciding where they want to spend it more free market than having the government?
Okay, but it doesn't. My point is that. But my point is that it is economically better, right? So if the government is providing liquidity in the time of a crisis, like it is doing now, it should be providing liquidity to the companies that require it in order to continue chugging along, right? So if we go into a recession, it's not going to be because somebody went bankrupt. We're going to go into a recession because companies go bankrupt, right?
Well, not necessarily. Like companies go bankrupt all the time.
Companies stay open and continue to pay the employees with the paycheck protection.
I mean, should Blockbuster get a stimulus if it was still around right now because it was struggling? No, it was a failing business model.
Okay, all right, but do you not see what I'm saying? Like solving the. So first of all, we have no money for any of this. We printed 37% of all money ever printed in the United States in this year, right? So our inflation is about to go through the roof. We do not have this money, right? So my point is that. These we shouldn't be spending almost.
Where'd you get that 37%?
No, I think his math's accurate. I think that's accurate. Yeah.
Yes, we are about to. The dollar is not going to be worth jack pretty soon, right? And we're doing it to do these massive spending bills that we don't have the money for. We just do not have the money for this at all. So, I'm getting a little fired up about this, but my point is that. We need to be very, very smart about how we do this. We cannot just be willy-nilly giving money to people, right? We should be targeting where this money goes. And I think the better bet, if we are spending money at all, should not be on. And maybe we can get to the really bad stuff right here. It shouldn't be on checks to people. We don't know whether they're working or not. They could be. For example, me. I should not be getting a check. I've been working all summer. I am fine. I should not be getting a check.
I'll be quite honest.
That are going under should be getting checks, and gender programs in Pakistan should not be getting.
But to the point, how do you determine if a business is going under because of COVID or because it was a bad business?
Okay, but forget about that question. The question whether the check should go to individuals or businesses. Let's just solve that one first.
So hold on. So I was sorry. I was reading. So someone in chat said,
"I'm getting fired up, but we have no money."
Passion's okay. I agree with you. We don't really have the money for it. But at the same time, you have to decide is pumping in some inflation worth whatever is needed for the stimulus? Is it going to prevent a recession? Are we at a point where we're going to have one? Is it? Do we need to have one anyway? Is pumping all this money in just going to kick the can down the road basically for a recession? Right. So Daniel in chat said, I think you're missing it, Tim. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Tim. I think Nathan is saying we need to protect the industries that are failing because of the COVID situation, not just poorly run businesses that would otherwise fail. And Daniel, I get that. I know what he's saying and you're saying. What I'm saying is similar to his argument. By sending out blanket checks, how do you know?
I'm not advocating for blanket checks.
I know. So by sending out blank checks, how do you know that the people that are getting them are working or not working? How do you know the people that need them deserve them or don't, right? And the same thing goes for businesses. By just saying, hey, if you're going under business,
I'm
you
trying
need the money. So how do you go out and say, hey, business, please prove to me? Hold on. Answer then after I ask, how do you say, hey, business, please prove to me that COVID is causing you to fail, and then we'll give you money?
Because COVID is causing nobody to fail. What's causing companies to fail is governments shutting companies down, right? And you can.
No, I would go out by far and argue that there are plenty of businesses that would fail because of that. Cruise lines are old people, heavily dominated on their passengers, and they are not going to go cruising regardless if the government let it happen or not in a vast majority. Some people would still go, but if cruise lines lose 30%, 40% of their customer base, they can't sustain that, right? Same thing with airlines. Airlines would be the same way. And they're not
fly.
Huh?
Less people would fly, but more people than now. So like,
sure, but they
so
didn't
you're
have
asking me,
margins to
what
begin
is a way that we can do this? The way that we can do this is that if your industry is targeted specifically for shutdown by the government, you can get a check.
How do you? So only if the government has shut you down, you should get a check. I can see where you're going with that. I could be on board with something like that. The fairest
way to figure out who has actually been shut down, because if the government shuts you down, you're shut down unless you're doing civil disobedience.
I think if we were looking at doing a minimalist stimulus check, like stimulus option, which is what you're saying you think is more valuable or what we should do, I think that would be a pretty fair way to do it, right? Like if there were, I think it misses the mark a little bit, and I'll say it in a second, but I do think that it's more fair than just sending out a blank check. I think it misses the mark on the people that are struggling because of COVID, though. As an example, let's just say, travel is massively reduced. It's going to stay that way for a while, and a lot of people are working from home and all that stuff. So airlines would have struggled, right? Businesses just are not sending people out to travel. So airlines would have struggled regardless, and they wouldn't have been, as long as there wasn't a shutdown, necessarily in line for a stimulus. Chris, you haven't talked in a while.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, just skimming some stuff, trying to get a gauge on this. But yeah, no, I am actually pretty concerned that 20% of our printed money came from this year. That's pretty concerning. There is a lot of writing and literature online. Yeah, there's a lot of literature online, though, that, while yes, that isn't a good thing necessarily, because inflation is a little bit more complex than just how much money exists and where it's being used. It's also about how it's being spent, how often it's being spent, how often money's changing hands. It's also about the link between currency and the value of products. And it does seem that, because products have been relatively constant or lowered in value recently through whatever means, inflation isn't going to hit as hard as one might presume if this was to have occurred in the 40s or 50s. But yeah, it's something to be concerned about. I agree. I think that, to be totally honest, if I'm going to trust my gut instinct here, which is probably in disagree with my party, I am a big believer in small business grants versus big business, and also stimulus checks for everybody. I think where it comes down to is when I think about why should we have stimulus checks? Like where's it going to help, right? To me, local businesses and small businesses are top priorities. So I don't care about the Walmarts and the Amazons and whatnot. Sure, airlines, that's a different case. Engineering firms, that's a different case. But when we're discussing where does that money actually going to help create jobs, those are, Walmart's not hurting for creating jobs. Amazon's not hurting to create jobs. But what is hurting is the pizza restaurants. It's the small time manufacturing shops that have not had business right now, that have less than 30 employees, but still, 30 employees that are making six figures, right? Those are the places right now that need the most stimulus, not those who are gainfully employed. And so I feel that's where a stimulus check could make the biggest impact but it's not going to happen that way. That's the reality of it.
I don't think it's necessarily true, though, that the big companies can't be impacted. I mean, I'm pretty sure all three of us here have heard of JCPenney, right?
Sure. Those
they went way out already, though. It's kind of going.
They were struggling, but they were struggling. No doubt about it. And
right.
Many retail
during
right. But that's the whole point that I was trying to make before, which is they were, JCPenney had dumped a lot of money and effort into rebuilding and changing the way they were doing business, and it was fairly successful. They were kind of turning things around until COVID hit. But the point that I was trying to make before is their margins were very small, and they were that borderline trying to make it survive type of company, and COVID put them over the edge, right? So is that a kind of company you sustain? You're like, well, I mean, was it a great company? But did JCPenney going out of business and shutting down however many stores would have a larger impact on the economy than my local pizza shop going under, right? Like, why should they not also get help? Those are all jobs as well.
So I think those ones, the big businesses that are suffering, can prove significant losses. Let's help them. But the big businesses, which I think this stimulus check, to what I understand, does do those things. It does help out. It's not going to give money to Amazon, but I think really the emphasis is all on not just the one pizza shop, but the tens of thousands of pizza shops.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the idea of a stimulus checks, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the idea of a stimulus check is that, well, either it's going to help someone else pay out their own debt or whatever, or it's going to go into their local economy. That's like kind of at least the selling point on the far left. It's like, this is going to stimulate the economy. It's going to help people get off their feet. It's going to help them pay their bills, whatever.
Yeah, but again, it's money we don't have. We do not have.
It's money that we don't have, but also, how likely is it that it's just going to get eaten up by people going on Amazon or eBay?
Right.
Or
yeah,
Walmart,
I mean, that stuff's going straight to Bezos.
That leaves, I think people that are on the left too are guilty of this, and that the way we spend money is really important. It's like whenever you spend the money, you have to think like, where's the final margin of profit exist, right? So if you go to get your haircut at your downtown barber, then even if the owner's not cutting your hair, that the money stops at the owner. And sure, maybe the owner has a really nice house because he cuts thousands of people's hairs every year and whatever, but he's also employing his local employees, and like, awesome. The money's staying right there. That means any profit that's hitting in West Hartford, Connecticut, and that owner living in West Hartford or Farmington is staying right in that area. Whereas if you go to Taco Bell and you spend like $5 on a chalupa, like, sure, that person that made you your taco is getting, they're $8 an hour, $10 an hour, but the profit, yes, it'll hit their manager, but then it's going to Venezuela, or not Venezuela, Brazil. The person that owns Taco Bell and Burger King is a Brazilian billionaire, right? So it's like your money is literally leaving the country. I think that's something to keep in mind. Like, where is the stimulus check? Where do we want the money to actually exist? And to me, I think, Nathan, you're right in the sense that if there's a way to write this bill in this way, it's reality, it's already done. But if there would have been a way to hyper incentivize the struggling big businesses and then the local businesses.
That might be the longest winded Buy American speech I've ever heard.
It's funny. The horseshoe theory works for that. If you go very far left and very far right. I mean, Bernie Sanders was all about that. He was all about immigration control a couple years ago before the 2016 election.
I'm all for Buy America. I really only buy whenever I make purchases with my organization. I'm hyper conscious to try to keep it local. Like, I'm literally buying coffee cups from one of my former students that runs a little mug business. Like, we're trying to keep it local.
He gets that shit from China though.
No, he gets it. He gets this stuff printed here too. I'm buying mugs for like $8-10 a piece for like
guys in the back of the shop, hand molding some ceramic mugs.
If I want to, dude, it hurts. And I'm not gonna lie, it actually kind of hurts. If I ever wanted to sell these mugs to even make a profit, I have to sell them for like $15 each. But thank God this is a non-profit. So
yeah.
Okay. Let's briefly talk about. So I tried to find a list of all the weird stuff. I heard Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool, like everybody who talks about this on the right, brings up the list of really weird things, like different places where this money is going. It's like, again, we have no money. We do not have money right now. We're at risk of hyperinflation at this point. And I understand the article that you read. There's arguments against that, but there's also something called modern monetary economic theory, which seems to think that debt doesn't matter anyway. So,
Reagan started that. Reagan did start that. Let's be honest.
Well, Reagan was wrong. Again, I reserve the right to absolutely not believe in anything that guy did. Anyways, so
you're gonna have a bunch of Republicans knocking on your apartment door right now. They're gonna be like, Reagan, Bush, Reagan. Just
again, I'm gonna emphasize that I'm on the right, but I'm also down towards the libertarians. So
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so the weirdest thing that I heard that this was sending money to, and again, I couldn't find the list anywhere. So it was talked about on all the shows that I listened to, but I couldn't find any because it's such a weird thing to Google. Like how do you Google what are the weird things in this stimulus bill, and then it comes up with a whole bunch of it. Yeah, you pretty much have to read it, and I frankly have a full-time job, so that didn't happen. Congress didn't read it either, and that's a whole separate thing. But the weirdest thing that I heard there's money going to, and I think it was like 30 million or 90 million. I don't remember which of those. I just think it was a multiple of 3 and it was in the tens of millions. That amount of money going to Pakistan gender programs.
Well, let's find out right now. I don't think
Yeah.
It's actually very easy. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look up. I actually have it on my phone, but I need it on the computer for me to do this. So we're going to look up stimulus, bill text, and then right here we have. All right, it was right here. I got it. It is 5,000 something.
You can't read, so you can go to sleep.
You guys continue conversation, because what I'm going to do is basically pull up the text, and I'm just going to search in the text the word Pakistan and see wherever it comes up.
Get it pronounced.
So to kind of keep it going while he's searching, just to comment on something new, kind of not neutral, but overarching over the whole thing. We've kind of talked about this before. That I kind of took the stance that I understood in the past why bills contained lots of different things in them, because people had to ride on horseback from all the states to the to meet in Congress, and so it was a lot easier to just do all things one time. But in today's world, it seems to me that it would be more beneficial to have each individual topic in whole. It's not like you can't have a stimulus bill that targets multiple things within the stimulus, but paying for a museum or something right within that bill might not make sense. So I feel like things should be more separate. And we had this discussion, and I was kind of overruled 2-1 in this group, that both of you felt that it made sense that these types of weird little anomalies make their way into these bills, because you have representatives of the population.
They all have something to get done,
and they all have this agenda, and their vote is needed, and that's where they are able to say, "Hey, you need my vote for this. Yeah, you need my vote for this. Well, I need this in there, right?" And so, I don't like that, but you both kind of made the point to me that that's the way it is. And so going through and picking through all the different miscellaneous, random, weird things that are in this one is kind of like, in my opinion, going back a little bit on how you felt.
So let me make a point. So we probably, or should have, if we didn't, we should have phrased it like this. It's sort of like a necessary evil. It's like gerrymandering. Like, we understand why it happens, and it's tough to come up with another system. So, for example, this is actually the other system, right? It used to be that all of this pork barrel, or all of these different interest items, used to be amended onto the thing, right? And since we got rid of that, now it's just literally in the whole thing, and the whole thing gets put up for a vote. There's no amendment process. You can't vote on anything like that. So it's actually worse now than it was.
But why couldn't it be, as an example, to say, you say, "Hey, I need your vote on my bill," and I say, "Okay, great, but I need your vote on my bill."
Yeah,
and then you just go through and say, "All right, what are the votes on this bill? Okay, great. And what are the votes on this bill? Okay, great."
It's
right?
Time consuming.
A little bit more.
A very procedural stuff in the Senate and the House.
Dude, it doesn't have to be. We could do voting like they do on fucking game shows, where you just push a button and it counts it all up. You don't actually have to fucking raise your hands and count people and write their names down and shit. We have digital technology.
Okay, guys. So sort of. So the answer is sort of, but not in the main bill. So they basically voted in two bills at the same time. So you have your COVID bill, and then there's a separate bill that does include funding for foreign aid. To pick out something like, first and foremost, to pick out something so specific as like an actual program on the ground in Pakistan is kind of naive and cherry picking. It's because basically the federal government, the way the federal government functions, when you pass a spending bill, very rarely do you actually say, like, all right, we want Connecticut to develop a program called Sun Scholars Inc. that helps former foster and adopted youth. What the federal government does is they say, all right, here's funding for social services for youth that are over 18 in foster care. Do something with it. And then the state says, all right, we really prioritize academics, and so now we're going to do that. Maybe another state says we really prioritize housing, so we're going to put that money towards that. So yes, we do foreign relief. That's nothing new. And sure, the libertarians that believe in, America first, we shouldn't give money to other governments. It's just not that simple. We do give money to other governments, and that's
why libertarians have to be America first.
Yeah, it's something that we're always going to do. And I'm probably more against it than most people on the left, but I acknowledge there's a necessity to it. There's a role in it that I can't even speak on because it's more foreign affairs. But this is two separate bills that were passed at the same time. So yes, you could latch onto it and say that, whoa, this is crazy. But it was part of an omnibus bill. So it wasn't part of this relief. It just was voted in at the same time, as I'm sure other bills were too, because Congress votes in things at the same time when they go to meet.
Let me just clarify why I brought that up, because I knew that was on the other bill. The reason why I bring it up is because we don't have money. This is in conjunction with we printed so much freaking money this year, and we borrowed so much money this year. It's ridiculous.
Well, we also gave a tax cut to the billionaires and trillionaires, and that.
Right? I know, but that's gonna give everybody else more money, so we should do that.
Trickle down, baby. Yeah, we probably need to raise taxes again. Anyways, just not on the rich, on the poor. Just kidding. I don't know what I believe anymore.
Because your beliefs are wrong, and you're starting to.
Let's talk about the bad things of the bill. Let's dive into that, because there's a few serious bad things. Well, first, I think my favorite meme
quickly, because we do have to get to our last topic. So let's just
real quick. First and foremost, I saw a great meme, great tweet, said, Congress has announced that the next round of stimulus checks will be the friendships we made along the way.
Yeah.
I think that's really funny because
that works for me. I'm down.
Yeah. But no, the big one, Nathan, you and I talked about this yesterday, was the turning illegal streaming into a felony crime, which is absolutely insane.
Illegal streaming? What the fuck is that?
It's a felony now. So
what is illegal
copyrighted material is now a felony if this goes through.
So if you want to, Tim, say you want to go watch Demon Slayer, the movie that came out in Japan that hasn't been dubbed in English yet, and so you go hunt down, one of those weeaboo websites that puts up all the anime that's put out in Japan first. Like, yes, I'm going to watch Demon Slayer. You just committed a felony.
I was thinking streaming like we are, and I've got copyright music playing in the background or something.
I'm sure that would count.
No, if you wanted to, for example, if you wanted to research Uyghur oppression and you streamed Mulan from an illegal streaming site, then you would, it's a felony.
But it has to be streaming. I can still torrent that shit.
I'm sure.
I think so. We'd have to read into it, but I mean, there's.
I need to know these details.
Really, streaming, torrent, different things.
Yes, yeah. Thank God.
What if I
still legal? Just a disclaimer, but
thing is, Congress is so fucking old they probably don't realize it's two different things.
Yes, that's part of the problem.
If you download it first, you're fine.
What else? Did we have anything else specific? I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff for arts and endowments and this, that, and the other thing. It's we're in a pandemic and a crisis. Why are we spending money on any of this stuff? I don't know.
Well, no, that's not something I would say is bad. I mean, the music.
But hold on. Before you say that, we have no money. We have no money.
We do.
We've had no money for a long time, but we
we haven't been printing 20% or 30% of
if you go back and look, since probably the second term of Obama-ish, maybe even the first term, the line of the rate of money printing hasn't really changed. Even it spiked this year a little, but it didn't change as drastically as you're thinking, right? The thing is, we've been printing a shit ton of money for a while, and we've had a deficit for a while, but until just now, you were all good with a tax cut, even though we were still at a fucking deficit.
Right, because I think it stimulates the economy, and revenue goes up.
But it didn't.
But it doesn't.
Okay, we obviously disagree on our economic theories, people.
Sure.
But we were right.
Just want to say though, if there's, but let's be real, Nathan. If there's any industry that needs to be bailed out right now, if there's any industry that truly needs funding, it's the theater, arts, entertainment, venues. Dude, there's so many. I saw this heartbreaking post. There was a guy who owned one of the big venues in Massachusetts that all the rock bands, all the metal bands go to. If you want to go watch, Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco or Black Veil Brides, Black Dahlia Murder. You want to go see those bands. This guy, he made a post. He's like, always was told to follow my dreams and good things happens. And I turned my dream into my life, and then boom, COVID, and now I'm closing my venue.
Okay, but he can get a small business loan like everybody else. And I'm going to circle back to the beginning. His job is not more important than the restaurant that's closing next door.
Sure, but I think that there's Sure, but I do believe there is something to be said about the entertainment industry, the theater industry, the arts, because there's just things you simply can't do at all. Like Broadway, you can't put on a play right now. Broadway employs thousands and thousands and thousands of actors and actresses. What are you supposed to do?
Use the same exact small business loans that everybody else is using.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra did a live stream for their video that cost $30 to watch.
I think you can start doing VR stuff.
Wow.
Anyways, I suppose we can. All right. So we got to get to this last topic. So unless there's unless there was another like super weird thing that they spent money on.
No, I think that's at least.
I wanted to look into it. I couldn't find a good list anywhere.
I know.
Yeah, I'll drop you guys a link just if you want to, read the text or skim through it.
Tim can't.
Is there an audiobook?
I'll read it to you tonight, Tim.
This is a 5,000-page audio.
Is there an audiobook?
That's right.
I have an Audible account. I'll look for it there.
Yeah, they're still narrating it. They started as soon as it came out, and they're still not done. Anyways, okay, all right. So the last thing we wanted to talk about, and classic us, we've almost narrowed ourselves down to a half an hour, which is okay. We can blow through this. So, there was an article that I brought up earlier this week. This was written by Newt Gingrich, and it was in the Washington Times. Okay, so. Regardless of what you think of the dude, and regardless of what you think of his ideas, I think this article is a good way. It's going to point out, it's going to articulate some things that I believe, and some things that I don't believe, and some good things that we can talk about. So I suppose we're not going to read you the article. I would never put Tim to sleep like that. But I did go through and I took notes, and I have the big bullet points. So Newt Gingrich, he was what was he? He was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
During Bush's years,
I think so.
Maybe something like that.
Something like that, right? So he's been in politics for a long time. He is a GOP establishment Republican, and I was actually drawn to it because I did not expect this kind of tone from him. I expected him to be more of to be coming down more on the non-populist side, on the just the conservative Republican.
Really, I mean, us on the far left,
yep,
by far and large, consider Newt Gingrich a full-blown populist.
This could just be an error in my my knowledge.
Well, that's fair. He used to be more respectable.
Right. Well, I mean, Speaker of the House. He had to get votes from somewhere.
Trump did that to a lot of people.
Right. I mean, Giuliani, Sidney Powell, anybody apparently. Okay. So, but that's what drew me to the article at first. So here's the main point. So what he's doing is he's going through, he's saying, here's what the populist right and Republicans more generally are experiencing right now. Here is our big problem. And this article is entitled, Why I Will Not Accept Joe Biden as President. So we'll try to go through these real quick. So his first point, he starts talking about, boom, right off the bat. So he's talking about like all of the issues that came up during the Trump presidency, like why he was treated like absolute shit and why Republicans were treated like absolute shit. So he points out that number one, right off the bat, talks of impeaching Donald Trump started before he was inaugurated. Like
yeah.
Day one.
Yeah. So to that point, let me find that's not my first note on this, by the way, because the entire article is a pile of dog shit. So the people that where's it at? It was like the Washington Post or whatever the site that he was talking about.
Wait, what are you talking about? What you talking about?
He's in this article. Newt Gingrich says this particular news site was talking about this ahead of time. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to find which one it's. Anyway, so the people that were talking about impeaching him before he became president were two advocacy groups. That's what the article was about. And these advocacy groups were talking about impeaching him because Trump had refused at the time to give up ownership of any of his business, which was fucking illegal. That's why they were talking about it. It's not like this article that Newt Gingrich is referencing was, oh God, Trump's president, let's find a way to impeach him. They had a specific thing they were talking about, A, and two, it was two specific left-wing advocacy groups. But If you read the article and the way Newt Gingrich words it, it makes it sound like the entire left and the entire establishment was coming out and like, hey, let's start planning before he's even a president on how to impeach him.
Yeah,
but that's not what happened.
They were, though.
That's not what happened. Okay. That's not what he's. That's A. That's not what he's referencing, and B. That's not what happened. What he's referencing specifically, he even mentions the newspaper article. He references a newspaper that wrote the article. That particular article is exactly what I just said.
All right, Chris. What do you think? Do you remember that? Or
The impeachment?
No. People saying we should impeach him for X before he was even president.
Oh yeah, only very, very, very far left fringe people that were saying that stuff. Nobody in the mainstream Democrats were saying that type of stuff.
True. And back in those days, I was a budding young Republican, I suppose. I don't know what I was at that point. Libertarian, maybe.
If that was
and I was
being
focused
said,
on the far left, so that kind of makes sense. That's what I would remember.
Yeah, if that was being harped, then it was only on, Hannity on Fox News saying look, some feminist or some person that's 17 years old and is a college freshman is saying that we should impeach. It's like, yeah, no shit. Someone's saying that as I was saying this stuff as an 18-year-old. Like,
yeah, but what about? Okay, so let me just counter that real quick. I mean, we got to keep going fast on this stuff, but like, remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, the FBI agents that were in charge of? They were both of them were on Hillary Clinton's case for the emails, and they were also on the Page Pfizer. Oh, geez, I'm just mashing words out there. They were both
myself on this.
They were on the Trump campaign investigation, and they were on the Hillary Clinton investigation. And their texts got leaked out later, and the two of them are having an affair. That doesn't really matter, but the two of them are texting back and forth, and Peter Strzok tells Lisa Page, she's like, no. Lisa asks him, hey, what if he wins? What are we going to do? And then he's like, don't worry about it. We have an insurance policy in case he wins. Right? So obviously all the Alex Jones types are losing their fucking mind over it. But at the same time, this guy was the lead investigator for the FBI who was simultaneously in charge of investigating Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
Sure.
And
I'm
he
sure
said something like that.
I'm sure maybe he did have some sort of notion, but either way, let's say this one person did want to, go against democracy. The institutions are strong enough that any effort he was going to make got, held down. So it was constrained in adding.
The idea is that the Russia investigation was that insurance policy.
Yeah, well, I mean, for what it's worth, I'm not going to open the can of worms. For those viewers,
I don't expect either of you to agree with that. So
for those viewers who are interested in learning our thoughts on the Russian investigation, please go see our.
Click this link here.
Yeah, click this link here, and we'll load it up here. Anyways, I do just want to tear up something. The Newt Gingrich article is super funny to me because one, it's published in the Washington Times, which is not a reputable newspaper. It is loved by the right, but I'm sure that Newt tried to get this published somewhere else, like on Fox, and they probably said no to him. Like, to settle for the Washington Times with someone of his caliber, he probably could have pitched this and had pitched this to the Atlantic, Washington Post, New York Times. There's other places he probably thought about trying this, and they probably rejected it.
Because Fox News is moderate these days.
Yeah, Fox News is Fox News is socialist. Are you kidding me?
Maybe if you're a fan of Alex Jones.
Let's just acknowledge this, right? He cherry picks his arguments. He's a straw polling.
I agree.
And I'm saying this as someone who I find one other time in this podcast I've used the example of someone pulling straws because I hate that example. I hate that cop out of a debate strategy, but because it immediately validates the other person. He's like, "Oh, you're straw polling." Like, all right, well then that means everything I say is wrong. But for what it's worth, you look at this and he's like talking about the world populist rebellion, destroying the economy because of COVID. It's like, well, for what it's worth, every single plague, illness, widespread global problem in the history of the world. I was reading up on this hardcore this past week because I was just intrigued on this. Aside from this article, every single time there's been a plague, the world has collapsed into a recession, depression. Actually, this is the first time in the history of the world that we're actually doing pretty good with it, relatively speaking, compared to the 1918 flu.
Not over yet, my friend.
Not over yet, but we're doing pretty good. Most people are employed. If this happened in 1918 in the Spanish flu, all three of us would be out of a job because we couldn't be working remotely, or we just die, or like more deaths would have occurred, right? So for what it's worth, no policies that the Democrats have pushed for or pushed against impacted the economy in a negative way that would have been more negative than what's already happening. And also, let's just keep in mind, Republicans run the fucking government right now. Like, so you're shitting on, we're destroying small business. Like, your president is Republican. Your Senate is Republican. They don't,
though. So, like, he controls the executive branch, but Nancy Pelosi's been belligerent all year. Like, we just got this stimulus check now because she didn't pass it 4 months ago when it was proposed.
Yeah, because it was not a full check. It was not a full package. It was not a compromised deal.
Every deal. This is the smallest deal that has been put up for a vote, and this is the one that got through.
Well, because of all the corporate buyouts.
You know what? That's actually one of the points we get to. So let's unless there's something you want to type real quick, I was going to say let's just keep going through his points, and we'll take
keep going
on its merit. So the second one would be talks of Russiagate and letting Hillary off. He talks about that. That's a standard Republican talking point where it's James Comey decided not to prosecute Hillary Clinton, where Nathan Bayek, who had access to secret material, would at least be court-martialed or definitely be out of the Navy if I had done what she did with classified material, but she wasn't prosecuted. The argument is that Comey changed the law he pretty much just rewrote the law by saying you needed intent. Anyways, he's contrasting the way
that's why they didn't charge Trump. Remember, we had this exact same discussion.
Well, because also, I mean, Ivanka,
Russiagate, where we said that they came out and said, yeah, we definitely can show that the Trump campaign was involved with Russia, was having meetings with them, but they didn't charge them with these things because they can't show intent or knowledge that what they were doing was actually illegal.
Right, intent or knowledge. Hillary Clinton definitely had intent and knowledge, so that's a different thing. That is a different thing.
Well, first off, you have to prove it, and second off, if you're talking about the fact that she deleted the email?
Had a server in her bathroom.
Yeah, so
tell me, like, I don't even want to get into this. Like, we need to talk about Emailgate. Like this, you're talking about two different kinds of law issues. Like, this is something completely different.
I'm talking about what he wrote about in the article, and what he wrote about in the article was that she deleted emails. Her contestation on that was that the emails that were deleted were personal of nature and not work-related. And from everything I could find on it in my quick research, right, because that all happened a little before I got really into politics, so I wasn't deep into that stuff. Everything I could find in my quick research was showing that there's no real proof that it wasn't that way, right? And second to that, in this article, Newt Gingrich says that she had some of her employees breaking hard drives with hammers.
Yep.
Right? And what that's actually referencing is that there were employees of hers that broke her old cell phones when she was done with them with hammers and other things to destroy them. There were no actual hard drives of emails that were getting bashed. These were old cell phones when she was done. Like, hey, I'm not going to use this mobile device anymore. And it happened on two separate occasions.
Okay, so maybe he's conflating two things then. They hit the phones with hammers, and then she BleachBit. The BleachBit is a data erasure program for hard drives. She used BleachBit on her server hard drives while she was still under investigation. And then when she was asked about it in an interview, when somebody finally had the nuts to ask her that question, she said, "Oh, what? Like with a cloth, like bleach?" And then that was it. No follow-up, no nothing. Never.
Well,
like I said, I haven't done enough research into the whole thing, but based on what he was saying, his two main points were complete, in my opinion, from what I could find, bullshit and didn't really hold water.
Go ahead, Chris. Maybe about all this?
It's been a minute since I've looked at this. I mean, I was definitely not a Hillary fan whatsoever in the 2016 world.
Hey, you and me both, buddy.
But for what it's worth, I mean, I always believed the email stuff was stretched out. It was kind of absurd. Sure. And also, for what it's worth, I'm not trying to. I hate them about to do this because what about strategies of debate piss me off?
Whataboutism.
Whataboutism. But for what it's worth, Kushner, Ivanka Trump, all of them were using personal emails during Trump's election on national, on secure, what should have demanded secure lines. And I get it. To be honest, on all of the above, I remember working down in DC. I technically had a secure email. And if you're just like talking about tabletop relative stuff and like your staffer texts you on your personal cell phone or you shoot an email, like I straight up like, I never really did that, but I definitely can see how easy it happens, right? It's not an impossible thing. So I don't think Ivanka and Jared Kushner should have been arrested for it. I don't think Hillary should have been arrested for it.
Right. I don't want to dwell on this point, but like again, like with them, like easy mistake. With her, she deliberately had the server set up and did it on purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is pretty sketchy. It's pretty sketchy.
We don't need to rehash that. I don't like it's still that's even just a talking point with the Republicans. Like that stuff is very complicated. He's kind of right, but like I'm saying that as me, I think he's kind of right, and you guys would say he's probably wrong. So it's like we don't really need to dwell on this point.
What I'm saying is that I'm not saying he's right or wrong as far as that deleting them were right or wrong. I don't know. I never did the research on it. I haven't done enough to know exactly what happened to all that. But what I'm saying is, regardless of, I mean, I think it's true. Yeah, she did delete these emails, and from what I understand, it was like 33,000 emails. Her argument was that she was deleting personal emails, and it had nothing to do with any investigation or anything like that. And to be able to charge somebody for so his argument is that, you know, the government was anti-Republican and was protecting their side, which was Hillary, and that's why they didn't charge her. And my argument against that particular statement is that they could not charge her because they could not prove intent. And that is the exact statement that the FBI made for the Trump investigation as well. We cannot prove intent or knowledge or whatever the term is, and that's why they didn't charge him.
Different thing.
It's the same. It's the same. The government wasn't protecting Trump, and the government wasn't protecting Hillary. It's not. It's the same thing.
It is. Like we're conflating like a whole bunch of things that are like not even related to things that are related to each other. Like we can maybe talk about this more offline, but like those two ideas are completely different. Like the thing that's protecting Trump is a precedent that you can't charge a sitting president. That is absolutely nothing. Yes, that's exactly it.
No, what's protecting him from being charged with obstruction of justice is that. What was protecting him from being charged with the conspiracy thing with Russia is different. Those are different charges, right?
Right. Knowledge and intent.
Or is that? Yeah,
I think you're lagging. You're not. You're actually crystal clear.
Okay, so I was seeing lag on my screen. Anyway, so he's not getting charged with obstruction of justice for exactly what you're saying because he's a sitting president. That's a charge that the FBI doesn't feel like they can bring against a sitting president. A charge that they can bring against him is what they originally were investigating for, which is collusion with Russia during the election process, and that's where they came up and said, yes, there was collusion between his campaign and Russia, and that there was, I think
members of his campaign.
Yeah, and I think they've come out and shown that there's links to show that he probably knew about it. But what they can't come out and say, they didn't. Well, okay, let's take him out of it, and let's just look at Jared Kushner.
We've already done a Rushgate podcast.
Yeah. So, but
like for time's sake, we're gonna have to.
Jared Kushner. Let's say Jared Kushner. The reason he wasn't charged because there is proof that he was meeting with the Russians on this stuff. Right? They know this for a fact.
Don Jr.
I think it was Kushner, and Don Jr., but there was multiple people. Is because they can't prove that they knew they were doing anything wrong, and that's part of this particular law. Most laws don't require that. This particular one does, and it's the same reason that they didn't get charged.
And the argument from lawyers is that intent is not part of the law that they were charging Hillary with. That would have been the rewriting. And we're not lawyers, so we can't really dispute that here on this show, but that is the contention.
Okay.
Obviously, she wasn't charged, so maybe it's fanatical Republicans being wrong. So, all right, so let's go on to the next thing. So then, all right, so this should be near and dear to your heart, Chris. He harps about Pelosi being obstructionist from day one. So the massive resistance to everything that he could do. Obviously he had both houses, early on. So the obstruction only happens from the midterms on. But I don't think we need to talk about that too much. I'll give you a chance to comment about it. But obstructionism, he's pissed off about that, which understandable, I guess.
Well, I mean, the big issue is that neither side was finding compromising nature, in the bills that were meant to be deliberated. And the biggest problem too is just, I think we'll see a lot more of an effective Congress, even if you still have a Pelosi. Because keep in mind, Pelosi's a moderate. it's not like we're talking about like far, far, far left people right now. Sure, Pelosi's not as close to the center as other House members, but she's definitely no AOC. I mean, she's even openly kind of called them out. You're dealing with a Mitch McConnell character like that is equally, you can argue, is obstructing the Senate. So I mean, it's just gridlock, dude. It's just gridlock, and the reality is, I'll be totally upfront. More gets done than the world wants you to believe gets done. You know, I think both parties want you to feel that there is more gridlock than there actually is. And sure, at times, yeah, there's been some serious gridlock, but we haven't had a government shutdown. We haven't had, which means that the ticket items that need to go through have gone through. Major spending bills have gone through.
And stuff.
What was that?
I said like bills with endowments for the arts and stuff.
Absolutely, but and Mitch McConnell bringing in one of the highest rates of state returns out of any other state, because he's just like funneling money into Kentucky because that's the power you get as a majority leader. So, you know, it's just how it works. It's just how it works. You know, let's call it out for what it is. But on all sides of the aisle. But yeah, there's not as much gridlock as the world wants you to believe there is. Major things are getting done, but sure, you can hark on Pelosi, but you can also attack McConnell on the same exact argument.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Yep. So I would agree. Yeah. Okay, it's not that controversial. We're pretty much all on the same page with that. And then here's one that I start caring about. So Twitter and Facebook censorship of the Hunter Biden story. Go. What do you guys think? Because that one right there, that was like.
Well, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
So.
And Barr has
click this link right here.
Been pretty explicit on recently that he's like, yeah, you know, everything that's getting done with the Hunter Biden probe is being done effectively, efficiently. You know, there's everything that needs to be, you know, everything that's there is there. Like,
okay, so, but it was censored. This factual article from the tabloid, like, so this thing was still factual, even with sensational statements in it, was censored by social media because an election was coming.
Click this link up here.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. I think,
but stuff has come out since then. Like,
sure,
yeah, but I think
confirmed that this stuff was correct, right?
They've confirmed that there's an investigation into Hunter Biden that has to do with his taxes, and it specifically states that Joe Biden is not implicated at all.
But is it confirmed then that Hunter Biden gave money? It was the big guy Joe Biden, or that's still just like, you know,
fun Republican none of that's been
okay, so it has.
What's been confirmed and what's the new information that's come out? I looked into this after, like, when I was reading through this article, is purely that the FBI has gone further along with the investigation. They've confirmed that they're doing an investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes. And I think what they're looking into is taxation issues and possible money laundering charges to do with money going through China. And I'm assuming the Burisma name wasn't brought up in the articles that I was reading. So, you know, it basically confirms, yeah, they're doing an investigation, but we knew that back when all this was leaked out originally. And again, yes, we did.
Yeah.
When they came out and started talking about the laptop and stuff, that it came out before the election that there was a subpoena for the laptop from the FBI and that they were doing an investigation into Hunter Biden. They wouldn't confirm or deny the investigation, but it all had come out in these articles. Okay, the only thing that's changed is they've confirmed that they're investigating.
So let me make this point. Who reported on that except for Fox News and the New York Post and far-right outlets? Right, this is a massive scandal on the eve of an election. Whether or not it's a nothing burger, this was a massive story, and nobody nobody touched it. All of the mildly left-wing and left-wing publications in the mainstream media did not touch it. CNN, ABC, CBS.
Well, Fox didn't touch it at first either. Fox didn't touch it at first either. And why? Because the reporting was not up to snuff at the time. And the reason, and we've talked about why there was censorship. Click up here, right? But the bottom line is, you know, the argument still stands. They didn't censor it based on the fact they claim they didn't censor it based on the fact that it was Biden in the presidential election. They claim they did it because it broke their terms of policy.
Well,
right?
we I feel that we've already discussed this to a point, but also
True.
let's just add, the other major news outlets did discuss the New York Post publication, but they didn't share it. But it was definitely discussed. Everyone knew about it.
Oh, it was discussed. What was discussed about it was how untruthful it was, and how these 50 experts who weren't actually involved with the investigation thought that it was Russian disinformation, despite the fact that the laptop was actually very real.
Sure.
Every article I read said that that it could be Russian disinformation, it could be real, but right now the evidence isn't enough to support anything.
Right, and those were people who are absolutely not involved and not qualified to speak on it.
Yeah, well, so the one thing I wanted go ahead.
I want to hear Chris, and then you.
I'm so just annoyed at the dude. I mean, how do you lose your laptop when you're the vice president's son?
I know.
Like, there's got to be like I can't even imagine.
The New York Times wrote about that.
What was that?
I said maybe the New York Times should have written an article about that, about how stupid it is to lose your freaking laptop.
Seriously, as the vice president's son, like me, Chris Scott, a nonprofit dude, wouldn't lose his laptop.
Yeah, but you don't have drug issues.
That's true. For what it's worth, let's just, because I think we want to move on for time's sake. But
I harp on this so hard because it's like,
you're fine.
For me, this is probably my biggest point. It's not his, but
I do want to provide one level of sympathy that I think is really important and critical here. It's like Hunter Biden has gone through some serious freaking trauma. It's never going to come up in this regard, but the left, I think, sees it a little bit more empathetic. And this is not to sway from the whole conversation we just had and should be had, right? But the dude survived a car crash where his little sister and mom die, survives with his brother dies. That's a lot. I can see why he entered drugs. I bet the dude's struggling with PTSD to this day. I bet that's a serious trauma to go through. People that survive that type of stuff, you relive it for the rest of their lives unless they get some help.
You've mentioned this too. Click here on the video in a box somewhere. We talked about that.
That's my social servicey side coming out.
My closure comment on this is, earlier on in this article, Newt Gingrich talks about.
Oh, we're not done yet. There's more.
I know. I mean, on this particular topic.
Yeah. Sorry.
So earlier on in this article, Newt Gingrich talks about how, it's now known 4 years later that the Clinton campaign financed the Russia disinformation campaign, an investigation into Trump.
The next one.
And all of that, and they did it in a timely manner, just to try and discredit him and all that. And it's pretty hypocritical to me to harp on that, which is actually bogus bullshit, which I was hoping you would bring that one up. Well, the bottom line is he's basing that comment on the fact, the Clintons that were their campaign was financing this and that was driving this. That information came from a intel letter from, I think, someone in the CIA saying that they had seen Russian information stating that Clinton was going to accuse, was going to do this stuff. It wasn't
that's not what it came from.
Yeah, it is.
No. Did the Steele dossier is what he's referring to was largely compiled from a source who was considered to be a Russian asset.
Okay, I'll go back and look into it more, but from what the research I could do was
still kind of BS.
It was based on a letter from Brennan saying that
the acting director of the CIA.
Yeah, and his letter was released, but has been heavily redacted. But basically said what you can if you misread it, it sounds like it's saying that there's intelligence that says that Clinton's campaign was doing this. But what his letter really says is that there was Russian intelligence that said this, but they don't actually think it was true or not true. It easily could just be more smear campaign and all that. And that's the only thing I could find that talked about Clinton financing and driving this investigation. The Steele dossier, I think, was a little bit different, but I want to research it more before I say that for sure.
That's exactly as somebody who rolls in conservative circles, when somebody says that, they're talking about the Steele dossier.
It doesn't mean that they're right. The Steele dossier may not even talk about that. But let me look into it before. On our next podcast, I'll tell you what it says.
So the Steele dossier was not the start of the Carter Page Pfizer application. It was later added in, and then it was continually used, even though the agents knew that it was fraudulently.
No. So that's a different thing. That's why I'm saying, like, when people talk about the Steele dossier, they're talking about how the investigation got started and approved to get started, right? That's not what I'm talking about. If you read what he's saying 4 years later it came out that Clinton financed and drove this investigation.
I'm telling you, that's what he's talking about. You just you have to translate it from conservative to normal.
He's talking about the letter from Brennan that comes out and says that the Clinton campaign was. If you read that, the Steele dossier doesn't talk about the Clinton campaign being the one backing the investigation. It has nothing to do with that.
The Steele dossier was acquired by the Clinton campaign. Like, I'm telling you, this is what conservatives are talking about. Like, you're gonna have to take my word for this. Like, you
always say that. Provide me some sort of evidence.
I have been listening. Okay, we're gonna sit down after this, and you're gonna listen to 4 years worth of conservative podcasts.
All right. Anyway, what I was trying to get to on this was, Giuliani and all of the Hunter Biden stuff. They had all that information in 2019, and they held it until the election to release it right in front of the election as a smear campaign. And for him to come out and, regardless if it's true or not, rip on the Clinton campaign for possibly doing that, and then the same article come back
apples
and
oranges, alien oranges.
Okay, it's fine if we do it, not if you do it.
That's totally different, dude. That's a real laptop with real stuff on it, and then that was a fake Russian dossier that was compiled by a Russian agent.
The Steele dossier isn't even what started the investigation.
I'm aware of that, and that's why I said what he said there is mostly bullshit.
Yeah, but he also wasn't talking about the Steele dossier. We'll talk about it offline. It's a deeper talk.
All right. So I think we have time for about one more point here, maybe one or two. We already talked about media, but like I just kind of want to hammer maybe a little bit. So like he talks about media cover up of. I don't know how he specifically mentioned this, but I'll just mention this, and I think this will be my last one. I have a lot of good ones here, but I'll just make this my last one. So basically, again, so the media covered up all of the negatives, say Hunter Biden, or for example, the BLM or Antifa riots. Like, I don't want to say the BLM riots because I know it's not all BLM. I get it, but like the BLM Antifa riots, like cities literally burning down behind CNN reporters while they're like mostly peaceful. Literally, that literally happened. Huh?
He doesn't talk about that.
He talked about media cover up of Biden, Hunter Biden. I'm adding on to the conversation by pointing out all of these other things that they covered up. So, like, for example, that, right, all of that, and then covering up all the positives, right? This is me. The media just absolutely would not report on the Middle East peace deals, right? It just never showed up on MSN. They didn't think it was worthy that Donald Trump should probably get 3 Nobel Peace Prizes, and now it's 4 in the Middle East for finally getting countries who've been war with Israel and not recognizing them for like the past, 80 years or something. That was pretty big. And then like not covering things like Operation Warp Speed, right? So it just bad stories, elevating, whatever.
Just like everything else, I have to look into it before I can make a firm opinion. But my general opinion is, if Trump actually had much to do with these peace deals and was the driver, or his campaign, or his advocates, then he deserves credit. And if he just happened to be president while they happened, then why the fuck give him credit? Right? Like, it's important.
Jared Kushner was directly responsible.
Right, but just because somebody's involved, and again, I don't know. He very well could be very much responsible. I'm not saying he's not.
So
but I don't know. On that. Yeah, but I think
that's my only point. And I suppose we talked about that earlier. It's just like they put their finger on the scale, like down. If the story's bad for Biden, we just don't talk about it, and then if it's good for Trump, we also just kind of like don't talk about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like that right there is
on the other side
part of what's ripping the country apart. So, like to Newt Gingrich's point, like, do you know how powerless people in the middle of the country feel right now? How angry they are. Like, imagine if the media was a non-factor, Donald Trump would have won, right? Because the margins are close enough in the swing states, right? If they had not pulled that off, like, so for example, if 100% of Democrats were aware of the allegations against Hunter Biden. I'm not saying believe them, but aware of them, That would have depressed the vote enough for Donald Trump to win.
No, that's not enough to.
So,
no,
hold on.
no.
To that
I
same.
knew about, but
Go
no,
ahead.
no way. I knew about Hunter Biden. Plenty of people knew about that situation. They still voted. And also, you can't just chalk up the media as all just being like one giant Biden engine, because you also have Fox News that literally holds in 40% of the country locked in. That is just constantly spewing Republican propaganda. So, and honestly, when you look at, CNN gets a lot more left than others, but NBC, all their middle channels, whatnot, they're pretty middle ground, guys.
They're not, though.
NBC, so whatever the other ones are,
CNBC, MSNBC.
Sure, but they're not Biden engines. They're not. I really don't feel like they are. Maybe
they're not.
Then which one of them fairly covered the Hunter Biden allegations then?
I'm sure
many of them fairly covered it, but you don't feel like it was a fair coverage, but you're not the one that determines on if something is middle ground or not. Like you feel like it should have. You feel like it should have damned them based on that, right? But in my opinion, I think a fair coverage, if they truly believe that the data that was out there wasn't valid yet, is to say, "Hey, this is what we're hearing, but we don't know if it's true or not." Which many of them did.
I can walk you through why that's stupid. I can tell you exactly why that right there is stupid. All you need.
We've already talked about it, and you didn't convince me. Click this here to hear it.
Here. Or go back to the beginning of the video too.
Well, I think it comes down to this too. It comes down to this. It's these stories covered it, and the way that they covered it. And when you're talking journalistic integrity, there is this notion that you need to verify sources. You need to verify not just go rewatch season 1 and 2 of Daredevil. Ben Ulrich is such a good example of journalism, at its peak. Oh, you heard this from him. Well, it's not on the record, so we can't do it. Oh, well, that's still not, just because he said this, it's not enough. That is kind of how, to be totally honest, how big journalism rooms actually operate. People, we always love to, here's the thing, we love to hate big media when they say things that we disagree with. We love to hate them. I loved to hate big media when everyone was talking about Hillary's email dump. CNBC did that too. NBC was dumping that. I hated them for it. But the reality is that that's what journalism is. We love to hate them, but we need them. And so
I can probably, so in this, and then I'm done. Okay. So on this specifically, if we had what was his name? Ben in Daredevil?
Yeah.
If we had that guy, what he would have done was he would have, in the first couple days, he would have found the receipt, right, that had Hunter Biden's name on it. He would have taken the laptop, the copy of the hard drive that Rudy Giuliani was offering to every news station that would take it. Nobody was taking it. He would have dug into all of this different stuff. There was... Probably. Right. So my point is that it's not. So what the stories that I was seeing at the time were, these are unsubstantiated claims, and we're also going to put up experts who say this may be Russian disinformation, even though they're not associated with this and they haven't actually seen the hard drive. They say, oh, this these unsubstantiated claims, and they keep saying that, and they won't bother substantiating them because it hurts Joe Biden. All they had to do was reach out to Rudy Giuliani to get a copy of the hard drive, a forensic copy of the hard drive. He was offering it to everybody who would take it, including Fox News, right? And there was he had receipts. He had the receipt. They could have reported on the fact that Hunter Biden's lawyer contacted the shop asking for the laptop back. All of this stuff could have been uncovered, and the mainstream media just didn't touch it. They just kept saying unsubstantiated without bothering to try to substantiate it. So I'm sorry. I'm pretty frustrated with the whole thing, and I don't. We probably disagree.
Go on to NBC and search Hunter Biden, and you're going to find a bunch of coverage on the story. I'm going to drop it in our chat. I understand why you're upset by it. I would be too if I was. And I understand they're actually. Here's another fun one too. Literally talking why they're not covering it. I'm dropping this for off the air conversation. Just feel free. We can actually touch on this next week because we can't.
We can throw it in.
No, I don't. We probably shouldn't touch this again. I feel good. We can if you want, but
so I mean, if we have a couple minutes, I wanted to
just a
like,
couple.
you kind of covered some of the stuff in there, but most of the stuff you covered wasn't the biggest pile of shit that
I know. I was going sequentially. We didn't.
And well, but I mean, you did pretty well, but you also skipped a lot of stuff. But like you make this article sound like it really represents the view of the right, and I generally kind of agree with you. But the fact is, a lot of this stuff is misspoken, twisted, and inaccurate information. Like,
yes.
The election.
Just looking through my notes, I know in one of the lines he said something like, why is it okay that Zuckerberg gets to spend $400 million in Democratic?
Did you look into that? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time looking into almost every piece of this article, and every single piece, almost without fail, is construed or twisted or full of shit. This particular one was Zuckerberg donated 2 different tranches of money to a nonprofit organization in Chicago that provides PPE and other things like that to election groups and all of those types of things, right? Like, he donated in a total of $400 million to some Chicago nonprofit that helps make voting accessible to people, basically. That's what he's bitching about.
Right.
And it's not for Democrats or Republicans. It's for...
It literally, yeah. I mean, it's a Democratic-driven area, but to be honest with you, if it was going to be Democrat... Okay, so what does it fucking matter then if it was going to be Democrat anyway?
And also, it is his own money. When it comes to Facebook itself, every single person on a Facebook account gets the fun, annoying notification that says, go register to vote. Here's all your voting information. Let's just say that Zuckerberg is a Democrat and decided to give money to a Democrat organization. He has every right to do that, just as long as he's not forcing you to do that via Facebook.
Okay. Here's the argument. Okay, the argument is that he gave it to because it's not like you just treat Chicago as a block. The state has a total tally, right? So if you increase dramatically the vote in the city, but the country was going to surpass it, but then you increase that city vote and then you end up winning the state that way, you're favoring the Democrats real hard with that.
Well, no, you're favoring the fact that there's high population concentration in this area, which happens to be Democrat.
Well, okay, but they broke it. So I did read one article about this. The reason why I said I don't know about it is because I just saw a biased article on it, and I'm not going to pretend that that's I know about this. But specifically to what you just said, and then I'll let you go. The money broke down where it was like $5 or $6 were getting spent on Republican voters, and it was like $40 or $50 were getting spent on Democratic voters.
Sure.
So there was a pay disparity specifically.
Maybe it's very possible that Zuckerberg didn't realize that his funds were going to be used in that way. But more so, even if he did, like,
or it could be that they focused on highly populated areas where PPE and other things are going to be more valuable, and it happens to be that highly populated areas are Democrat driven.
Yeah,
right.
It's too.
I mean, this is an interesting topic on this point. If you didn't hear about it, if you didn't see it, 70% of the country's GDP is in Democratic counties.
Yeah, didn't we go over that the other week?
We did.
Maybe, but so. If more money is spent, I mean, more money is earned, so more money is spent in those counties. That's not.
Yeah, but again, per person, much more was spent.
Look, I'm not honestly.
Per person.
If Zuckerberg donated $20 billion to Democratic initiatives, I wouldn't knock that because that's just the way the big wealthy people in our country operate. If we disagree with that, change the system. I'd
love it.
Nathan, are you here for election reform? Are you supporting election finance, campaign finance reform?
Yes. Yeah. Look, all right. I'm getting pigeonholed. I actually don't.
I'm messing with you.
No. But sort of yes, and I also don't care about this point. This is why I didn't bring it up. I actually don't care. I didn't research it enough to get into this. So sure. I mean, billionaires give money to causes anyways. I think the Republicans are trying to get them on a technicality here. Yeah, they gave it to a non-profit as opposed to a non-affiliated. Yeah. Like an affiliate. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I think they're trying to get them on a technicality there.
This is kind of my final point on this article in general, but just one annoyance that I had that I was surprised to see from Newt. is to me it was the notion that Newt Gingrich fully has chosen the populist side of the Republican Party was his criticism on the election. I just was very surprised by that, because it's you can throw these fancy statistics around, you can throw these claims around, but they're just not true. Just because you keep saying something doesn't make it any more true. And every single thing is refutable. It's like, yeah, there were big blocks of Biden votes because they were counting mail-in votes, and they were we've been there.
I agree with you on that.
We've already been there, right? And so it was sad to me to see that, because I know Newt Gingrich has been relatively closer to Trump than he was to someone, say, a Romney. But with that said, I am surprised to see people who I at least considered to be intellectual choosing this populist notion above anything else.
Yeah, I think we opened that up with the other podcast. I'm just very surprised with who's lining up where. Yeah,
I mean, Lindsey Graham too. I was surprised by Lindsey Graham.
All right, Tim, final words, and then I think we'll sign off.
Yeah, I think kind of on what you just mentioned, the voting thing. I mean, there were so many things in here that he completely twisted and made sound bad. One real quick, he said something about the left is trying to decredit or the Trump or the Biden campaign or something along those lines is trying to de-accredit schools that don't have like gender neutral acceptance or something like that, even religious affiliated schools. And like that's coming from a single lobbyist group asking for this. And it hasn't been accepted or anyone in the government saying, yeah, we're going to do that. It's just somebody asked for it. And now he's like, oh, the left is going to do this. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's plenty of lobbyist groups on both sides that ask for ridiculous things that isn't fair to accuse of. But to get to the one main point that I wanted to close on, what we were talking about there, he makes a point which I think is pretty important that people realize is twisted in talking about the rejection rate of absentee ballots. And he specifically talks about, I believe, Georgia in the article, where he says the absentee ballot rejection rate was 6% in the 2016 election, fell to 0.6% for the 2020 election, and that is obvious change in rules and laws to twist or shade the voting towards the Democratic side, right? What he doesn't talk about is the fact that dropped from 6% in 2016 to 3% in 2018, and from 3% in 2018 to 0.6%. So it fell the same percentage, 3%, over those 2 years. What he also doesn't talk about is that it's not just because people were trying to be disparaging, and it didn't just happen in swing states. It happened in most states across the board, Democrat and Republican, because most of the legislation and the states understood that absentee ballot was going to be a much bigger thing this year, and they put policies and procedures in place to help. So one of the things that these groups put in were cure programs or policies where they could look at a ballot and they could say, ballot curing. So they look at a ballot and say, oh, this is wrong. They give you a call and say, hey, you got till Monday to come down here and fix this shit, right? That didn't exist in a lot of these places before. They also had a lot better information out there to people saying, hey, here's how you do an absentee ballot, whereas before it wasn't as well communicated.
Right.
And third to that, people were a lot more focused on this election. Right, the turnout was high. People were driven and passionate, and they paid attention to their ballot, and so they were a lot more aware of the timelines and things. So there's so many things that went into the fact this happened. It wasn't like, oh, Democrats in swing states, broke laws and changed things to make this happen, which is what he's accusing. He literally says there's no other explanation. That's his wording in that article. There's plenty of other explanation.
Yeah, he does a lot of political twisting in this, totally. And that's why I brought it up in the beginning when I said we're going to discuss this article. And I don't agree with a lot. It's funny. I ended up defending almost everything he said, but that's just because I'm like further right than both of you, anyways. But like he's a very political person. He's kind of seems like a swamp creature to me, but at the same time he's populist. I just thought, it was a good article to frame a conversation around. So
no, I think it really was, and I think you said it right in the beginning. This is how a lot of Republicans feel, and a lot of Republicans feel this way because they're being fed a pile of bullshit, and they need to get more facts. Everybody.
including our fans. You're getting fed lots of bullshit.
Yeah, the same thing's on the left too, like in the far left, right? People like it's true across the board.
Everybody. I think maybe if you're in the center, you have a better chance of diversifying your feeds probably, but like all of us are kind of suffering to some degree. So
yeah.
With that, we're over again by 13 minutes, but I think it was well worth it. I had a great conversation tonight. So we're probably gonna we'll be back next week, right? Because I mean that's after Christmas and stuff. So we're gonna go drink eggnog tomorrow and the day after and all that, and it's gonna be a great time.
Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Happy holidays for all of those who celebrate their
yeah. For those of you who are stealing Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
I just want the presents. Just give me the gifts.
Happy holidays and happy New Year's to everyone. But
yeah, everybody, thanks for watching. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you before the New Year, but after Christmas. Peace out.